The year is 80 AD. The Colosseum is packed with 50,000 screaming Romans. The gates open, and two warriors step into the blood-soaked sand, armor glinting, shields raised, swords drawn. But here's what history forgot to tell you. They're both women. Their names? Amazon and Achillia. Today we're uncovering ancient Rome's most shocking secret, the gladiatrices, female gladiators who shattered every gender norm, captivated millions, and were eventually banned by an emperor terrified of their power. In the 1850s, archaeologists in Halicarnassus, modern-day Turkey, uncovered something extraordinary. A marble relief depicting two muscular figures locked in combat. Both warriors wear loincloths and carry shields and swords. Both have protective arm guards extending from wrist to shoulder. Carved beneath their feet are their names, Amazon and Achillia. Above them, an inscription reads, Apolluthesen. They were released. They had fought to an honorable draw, a standing tie so rare it was carved in stone for eternity. While history classes taught us about male gladiators, actual women were fighting and winning in the same arenas. Drop a comment if you never learned about this in school. Ancient Rome had no specific word for female gladiators. The term gladiatrix is actually a modern invention from the 1800s. These women were so controversial that writers called them mulieres, women of low status, or didn't mention them at all. Their absence from the written record doesn't mean they didn't exist. It means they were deliberately forgotten. Most gladiatrices came from the lowest rungs of Roman society. Enslaved women captured in war, criminals sentenced to the arena, women sold into slavery for unpaid debts, and prisoners from across the Roman Empire. But here's where it gets wild. Some of Rome's wealthiest, most privileged women chose to become gladiators. According to the Roman poet Juvenal, aristocratic women were sneaking off to gladiator schools, abandoning their comfortable lives, defying their families, and training with the same brutal methods as male gladiators. Why would a wealthy woman do this? Professor David Potter from the University of Michigan put it perfectly. It's exciting, it's different, it pisses off their parents. In ancient Rome, rebellion meant strapping on 30 pounds of armor and fighting with a sword while 50,000 people watched. Juvenal gives us a glimpse into their preparation, mockingly describing elite women grunting through sword drills, wilting under heavy helmets, practicing thrusts and parries, and building muscle mass Roman society deemed unfeminine. Female gladiators became the ultimate spectacle for Roman emperors desperate to outdo each other. In 66 AD, Emperor Nero hosted games featuring Ethiopian women to impress the king of Armenia. In 80 AD, Emperor Titus featured female beast hunters at the Colosseum's grand opening. One gladiatrix reportedly killed a lion. Emperor Domitian, who ruled from 81 to 96 AD, staged nocturnal fights by torchlight, pitting gladiatrices against each other for shock value. The poet Martial, witnessing these spectacles, wrote, "Let ancient testimony be silent, for after your shows, Caesar, we now have seen such things done by women's valor." Back to Amazon and Achillia. Their names weren't random. Amazon evoked the legendary warrior women from Greek mythology, fierce, independent, and terrifying to men. Achillia was the feminine version of Achilles, the greatest warrior in Homer's epics. These weren't just fighters. They were performing mythology. They were embodying legends. And they fought to a draw so impressive that someone paid for a permanent memorial in marble. That relief is now in the British Museum, one of only two visual representations of female gladiators to survive from the ancient world. Despite fighting in some of the empire's most famous arenas, we don't know these women's real names. Amazon and Achillia were stage names, personas they adopted for the crowd. Their true identities died with them. Not everyone was entertained. The Roman satirist Juvenal was horrified, writing scathing verses. What sense of shame can be found in a woman wearing a helmet who shuns femininity and loves brute force? Rome's authorities tried repeatedly to legislate women out of the arena. In 11 AD, they banned freeborn women under 20 from gladiatorial combat. In 19 AD, they specifically prohibited daughters and granddaughters of senators from fighting. But the bans didn't work. For nearly 200 years, gladiatrices kept appearing. Then came Emperor Septimius Severus. In 200 AD, after watching women compete fiercely in a gymnastic contest, Severus heard the crowd making lewd jokes. But according to the historian Cassius Dio, these jokes weren't just about the fighters. They were directed at other very distinguished women as well. The emperor was furious, not because the women were fighting, but because their fighting was being used to mock and sexualize all Roman women, including those of high status. So he banned female gladiators entirely. The ban wasn't about protecting women from violence. It was about protecting the reputation of elite men whose wives and daughters were being compared to arena fighters. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Gladiatrices were written out of history because they didn't fit the narrative. Roman historians, all men, couldn't reconcile these women with their worldview. So they mentioned them as briefly as possible, described them as exotic curiosities, portrayed them as moral failures, or ignored them completely. We have detailed records of thousands of male gladiators. For gladiatrices, we have roughly a dozen literary references, one major inscription, and 2 potential visual depictions. That's it. But their erasure tells us something profound. They terrified the men who wrote history. These women challenged everything Rome stood for. They claimed ownership over their own bodies. They chose violence in a society that demanded female passivity. They achieved fame in a culture that demanded female invisibility. Some were slaves with no choice. But others walked away from safety and respectability to become legends. We may never know Amazon and Achillia's real names. We don't know if they were friends or rivals, if they chose this life or had it forced upon them. But we know this. They fought so well that their achievement was immortalized in marble. They defied an empire's expectations. And for 200 years, despite bans and mockery and erasure, women kept stepping into those arenas. The gladiatrices existed, they mattered, and no amount of historical silence can change that. If this story gave you a new perspective on ancient Rome, hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment with the most shocking thing you learned today. And if you want to see the Amazon and Achillia relief yourself, you can find it in the British Museum's collection, artifact number 1847,0424.19. History is written by the victors, but archaeology doesn't lie. The women of Rome's arena may have been forgotten by historians, but they're still here, carved in stone, waiting to tell their story. Thanks for watching.